Shawna and Jody here with Real Sisters, Real Talk.
We're glad to have you joining us as we talk about growing in our faith with God. Hey there, welcome back to Real Sisters, Real Talk. I'm Jody and here with my sister Shawna, and we are excited to jump into some good conversation today. So, sister, I wanted to start with telling you a story of just something a little that happened this weekend. Sunday was a little bit of a warmer day, which was nice. And so the kids came over. Austin was out of town, but everybody else came over and we swam for a little bit, which means Tyler and Faye swam for a little bit. The rest of us sat on the outside. I held Jones. But Faye's been in swimming lessons. She's 2.5, my granddaughter, and she's been in swimming lessons for the last, 2 months. And they're real short, but they're private lessons. So she's really improving quickly, which it's so fun to watch her. She jumps off the side and they teach her to flip to her back.
Nice.
And it's so funny because she jumps in. And Daddy's in the water to catch her, but she jumps in, and as she pops up, she comes up with this big smile on her face and flips to her back with this big smile, and water's going over her face, but all you can see is a smile underwater, and it's just so sweet. But in the course of her learning to do this, there were multiple times of choking and gasping for air and coughing up water. And Daddy seemed to handle that so well. He would just kind of shove her to the side and she would come up gasping and coughing and, still a smile on her face. But I was coming out of my skin.
Nana wanted to run over there.
I kept, Tyler, and he's like, Mom, I'm going to swimming lessons Friday to watch her at swimming lessons.
Oh no, he's like, my mom's
Mom,
going to be a spectacle.
You are not going to be able to handle swim lessons if you can't handle this. Which, partly, so then even just sitting there in the moment and processing, like, why is everybody else okay with this?
Right?
I mean, we're all sitting and watching the same thing, and I'm the only one who's really struggling here to watch her struggle to learn something, which is part of the learning process. But partly I also recognize that I am like high empathy, and so I feel what she feels. I am a protector. That's really how God created me. And so I want to protect her from any difficulties or struggles or coughing or swallowing water or, whatever the situation is. And so while everybody else can see this is good for her, she needs to do this. I can see that, but it is ripping my insides out.
Yeah.
As I'm watching her struggle. And I can see that, like, this is one little story, but I can see that throughout my life, that there's times when I see things so different and the angst in me is so different than what it seems to be for other people. And there was just a paying attention to, God created me different. So they're not wrong because they see it differently than I do. Really in this scenario, I can say they're right, but it doesn't make me wrong either, because it truly is how God created me. It doesn't mean I have to give into it, but that, like, angst in me is, I do have empathy, and I know that. And so there's just a paying attention in that.
Yeah. One thing that stands out to me about that is just like learning can be a struggle, man.
Right?
Like there are parts that are scary. And, I mean, if I was Faye, because that's what I think, I like put myself in Faye's situation and I think, I'm going to die. I'm going to drown, like I'm swallowing water. I'm not going to survive this. And I think there are times in the learning process when things are, we're swallowing water. We're underwater. We can't see, and it's just, it's super, super, super scary. And it just makes me think, I wonder if, God's perspective on that is like understanding of what we're going through, but at the same time, like, I don't know what Faye's going to do with her swimming skills, if that's going to be something that she just enjoys her entire life, or if she'll be an Olympic athlete or a swim teacher, or, who knows? But this is a part of her journey that is going to make life better for her.
For sure. And even, I mean, even if it just makes her water safe, like
Yeah.
we have a pool in our home and we have alarms on our door. We're getting an alarm for the pool for when she's over. Like there's safety things that you put in place. She's never out of our eyesight. Like there's things that you put safety things you put in place, but she needs to be water safe.
Hmm.
And by battling through this, she will learn
There's
how to be water safe.
there is no gate high enough, no
Nope.
alarm loud enough, no, you know, there's nothing that is more secure than her knowing how to handle herself in the water. When we lived in
Amen.
Arizona, we had a pool in the ground in the backyard for our 9.5 years there. And there were times when I just did it like, it was kind of random, but it was intentional at the same time. I mean, that seems like a contradiction, but there were times when like we'd come home from camping or something and I'd say, and we're all nasty and I don't want my kids to go in the house looking like this, you know, because we camped like where you don't have running water and you don't have anything. Anyway, and we rode horses like for days, but we'd come home and I'm like, let's all jump in the pool with our clothes on. And it was a fun thing that we did, but it was also like, I want to know that my kids
Mhm.
with shoes on, with clothes on, can get themselves out of the pool or out
Yep.
of water, you know, if they were in that situation. But those are good skills to have.
They are. That's one of the things she will do in her swim lessons at some point is she will jump in with clothes on, shoes on, and have to get herself. They teach them to get themselves on their back, not even get to the side, but to flip to your back and float.
Mm-hmm.
And then they teach them. I mean, this is what she told me. My little 2.5-year-old, she flips on her back and then she has to yell, "Mom, Dad."
Oh,
So
may she never need to use that skill, Jesus. May she
may she
never need
never
to
need
use
to.
that skill.
Oh,
Woo! Yeah,
right. Scares me.
that's so
So
hard.
yeah, learning is hard and it's hard to watch people we love struggle through it. And we're on this journey of life always learning. There's always things that we're wrestling
Mm-hmm.
through, right? Like
Yeah.
there's things that God is teaching us, there's lessons to be learned, there's things that need to be surrendered and all of that. But I have just a recent kind of paying attention and this learning and this heightened time where I feel like God is doing so much teaching and stuff.
Yeah.
But I was teaching. I was scheduled to teach. We're kind of doing a lot of teaching right now because we're in our summer series, and so we just did a 6-week series on prayer, and now we're in a 7-week series on First John. And so there's multiple teachers, but I'm doing some of that teaching, and so there's a real rhythm to the teaching and prep and stuff. And it's in a different scenario that I'm usually teaching, and so I was going into one of the teachings on prayer, and I just felt this like angst as I was getting ready to teach
Hmm.
the kind of the day before and the day of, and just feeling like, um, I'm, it was one of those times of, why am I doing this? I'm not as good of a teacher as this person.
Mm.
This person communicates in this way. I don't communicate in that way. This person, I don't know, maybe is more vibrant or like whatever. This person knows the Bible more than I do. And all these things of looking at other people
Mhm.
and feeling inadequate in the way that I teach. I do believe that I am in the job that God has called me to do. And I do believe that God equips us to do what he has called us to do. So here was the thing that I kind of my learning in that angst, that struggling, that swallowing water in that that season. Um, right before I went in to teach, I felt like the Lord said to me, I don't want you to teach like anyone else
Hmm.
teaches because I created you to do this. And I want to teach you to stand up there and teach the way that Jody Grass teaches.
Mhm.
And there was this like, I can feel it in my spirit now. There was this like switch that took place of, okay, Lord, I can do that. I might not be able to teach like a Beth Moore or a Priscilla
Yeah.
Shire but I can teach like Jody Grass. I can teach the
Yes.
way that you taught me to teach. I can illustrate in the way that you've gifted me to do that. I can teach the word of God in the way that you have taught me. Like I can do that. And so that it was applied in the context of teaching, but there's so many areas of my life where that is overlapping, where I think it's easy to look at other people and think, but I'm not as good as that person, or I'm not as equipped as that person. I don't have the, I don't know, ability or the audience, whatever it is. I think we do that in so many
Mm,
areas of our lives. And yet God is like, can you just be Jody? Can you
right?
just be Shawna?
Yeah, I just made one of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so good. The first thing that comes to mind from that sharing, Jodes, is just how easy it is to compare ourselves to other people and
Hmm.
to, think somebody else might be better for the assignment that we've been given than us. And I resonate with this big time because I'll be stepping into a new role. And in my new role, um, my first thought, well, actually, I had two questions for my boss. I was like, one, what is the timeline for getting me ready and when am I going to start and whatnot? The second question is, why me? Like of because all there, I just have a lot of colleagues across the nation that are really talented, and one of them in particular is just so professional and so articulate, and the inflection of her voice. We're talking about voice radio. It's like she's just so good. And then another one is just like she has a background in the Peace Corps and she has counseling training, and I'm like, oh, she's just got such good insights to bring. And then another one has just been doing it for so long. She's just so good at radio. So anyway, I'm thinking about all the other choices and like, why didn't you pick so and so, or why didn't you pick so and so? And I wrestled with those questions for a while. And then when I finally got to have a conversation, with my boss about this and just ask him the question and just like, what exactly do you need from me? What information do you want me to share in my time on air? What do you want me to accomplish? And he's like, we want 100% Shauna.
Oh,
That was his
right.
answer. And I was
Yeah.
like, ah, that I can do because
Yep.
I can't do counsel as well as so and so, and I can't do articulate and voice inflection as well as so and so, and I don't have the years of experience of so and so. But I felt like that was the best possible thing he could have said. We just want pure Shauna, 100% Shauna. I'm like, oh, that I can do.
Yeah. And there's so much freedom in that when we get to that point. So like there's other areas in life where this applies, right? I mean, I'm thinking like, we compare ourselves, oh, well, I'm this kind of grandma. That person's that kind of grandma. I was this kind of mom. I am this kind of a mom. I'm still a mom. I am this kind of mom, but I see that person and they do this so well. And I wish I was a mom like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I wish I could think to respond like that. Right. We compare ourselves um, in so many areas of our lives. And there, we do want to be growing. I mean, I want to become a better teacher. I want to become a better wife. I want to become a better follower of Jesus. I want to become a better grandma, but I want to do it in the way that God
Yeah.
created me to do it. And I think that's, I don't know, this is real time wrestling. I think that's easier for me to say because I do know it in my head than it is because I to actually live into that, because I think sometimes we know what goes on in our own heads and all of that kind of thing, and I think sometimes it comes down to the root of I just think I'm not enough.
And yeah, okay, feeling like you're not enough. Here's improving on things like wanting to get better at what you do is not a bad thing. Learning, improving in your skills or whatever the case may be. If there's an area that you want to grow, that's not a bad thing. But we press it into areas that completely unrelated to that. Like, oh man, I wish I was like all of my life I'm a little bit taller than my sisters, and I always thought like, why did God make me so blasted tall? I just stand out in this obnoxious way, and it's like I wish I was shorter. Well, that's not something you can change about yourself.
Right.
It's not something I can improve on to make myself smaller in stature. And it makes me think of, I don't know if you know the story of Amy Carmichael. She's a missionary,
Mm-mm, no, I
and
don't.
she has dark hair and she has dark eyes, and she all of her life just wished she had blue eyes, and she couldn't understand why God would give her these dark eyes. And I, I I don't remember the details of the story if she had a sibling, like a sister that had blue eyes or whatever, but she just was like, God, why did you make me like this, like with dark hair and dark eyes? And I wish I had blue eyes. And she'd pray and ask God, to change her eye color. And fast forward in her life, she ended up becoming a missionary. And that was her, like, as a little girl, and throughout most of her childhood, teenage years, she became a missionary. God sent her to a country where the people are dark skinned and where literally you wear a hijab. So she had her head covered and her face covered, and the only part of her body that was revealed was her eyes. I'm going
Those
to cry
dark
telling you
eyes.
this story.
Oh.
And her eyes were dark. And because her eyes were dark, she was able to have conversations. She was able to enter into rooms that blue eyes would have absolutely kept her from. And she was able to meet people and minister the gospel to people. And thousands of people were saved and came to know Jesus through her work, her life, and her ministry that never would have come to be if she had had blue eyes.
So God created her for a purpose. God knew what his plan was. In one of our past podcasts, you talked about that God wrote today in his book. He's already
Yes.
got it written in his book. And so he knew that. And, okay, I'm going to actually go back to another podcast when you were sharing about your waiting, your season of waiting to find out if you were losing a job and
Yeah.
then to find out you were getting a job and all that, that we actually want to have full knowledge and all of the information, but we don't. We don't have all of the information. The same is true in our walk with God. We don't have all of the information that he has. He knew his plan for her. And it's easy to say that for somebody else. Sometimes things are harder to say it, to see it in ourselves. But yeah,
I also
it's a,
think it's easier to say it when you see the story unfold and go,
oh,
she
for
was a
sure.
missionary in this country where the only thing that was revealed was, I mean, now, like, it's a fantastic story, but it was her life. Like, she lived that out. And you were talking, Jody, about feeling like you're not enough. Like that. Can you imagine? You can't change your eye color. I mean, maybe if you could get contact lenses and change your eye color or whatever, but like God intentionally made her the way that he made her to accomplish his purpose through her. And she
Yeah.
probably spent a lot of her days feeling like she wasn't enough, or that somehow the way that she was made was a mistake. And I think part of that comes into play when, we lose sight of the fact that the reason we were created is to bring honor and glory to God, not to check our
Right.
boxes, not to, you know what I mean? That he has a plan and he is working his plan, and all the days planned for us were written in his book before even one of them came to be. Like, these are realities. And when we lose sight of that, we can definitely feel like we're not enough. I think of Moses, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not articulate. I
Exactly
can't
who I
speak
was
well. Were
thinking.
you really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love the story of Moses because he literally did that comparison thing. How about not me, God? I can't speak well. Not me, God. And God's like, I created you.
I
I
gave you
know
that
who you
mouth.
are. Yeah. And you know what? Like God, you see the way that God ordained Moses. He was born in a time when the Israelite boys were being murdered, and he was saved and put into Pharaoh's house. He was raised in Pharaoh's home so he would know the way that the household worked and the way that the Pharaoh worked. And then he spent the first 40 years there. And then the next 40 years he spent in the desert learning how to live in the desert when he was in Moab. And then he was called back to lead the people out of Egypt. And you just go, how did you not see God's hand on all of
Right.
this? And yet in the moment, it's so hard to see that.
Yeah.
It's what a
Both,
beautiful picture.
both the knowledge of the palace and the workings of royal life and all of that was needed for God's
Yep.
purposes to be accomplished, as well as the humility and the intimacy with the Lord that was
Right.
developed in the years in the desert. Like, all of it was used. I love that God doesn't waste any of that. But getting back to Jode's, the desire to feel like we're supposed to do what God has called us to do in the way that he's called other people to do it. I think that can be an obstacle even when you're like asked to pray out loud at Bible study or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
just have Jody pray, like
Right.
rather than, because here's the thing about you teaching specifically, Jodes, I feel like there's someone, probably lots of someone's, whose learning style and ability to grasp what God has for them, they're not going to grasp it through the other teachers and the way that they articulate it. But they can from you, like the way in which you make it available to them, the way that you serve it up is exactly palatable for them. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to, as still you're saying, pull the curtain back a little bit further.
Yeah.
In that process of sitting with the Lord, that, 24 hours kind of leading up to going into teaching, I was really, I was wrestling with this. So I brought it to the Lord and I said, Lord, I'm struggling. I don't teach like this person. I don't teach like that person. I'm not sure what I have to offer here. Like, I don't know, just really wrestling it out. What do you want to show me here? And I felt like the Lord said, just asked me very sweetly, what what is what is your mission statement? What is your life mission statement? And I've done work on this
Mm.
over the last 30 years. So this is not a new work. This is a work I've done over 30 plus years. But when I go to my mission statement, my life mission statement, in a succinct sentence, it is that I want to help people take their next step toward Christ.
Mm.
So, to put words around that, if somebody doesn't know the Lord, I would sure love to tell them about his love and be a part of them becoming intrigued about
Mm-hmm.
who he is.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is a new believer, I would sure love to help them take their next step in learning what it means to actually walk in the ways that he has taught us to walk, to
Mm-hmm.
learn, to fall in love with his word, right? If somebody has been a seasoned believer for years, they've walked with the Lord, I would love to be a part of helping them continue to be transformed, like it says in Romans
Mm.
12, right? Like, this is my desire. I really do believe that is, I mean, secondary to I am here to bring God honor and glory and to worship him. My individual purpose
Yeah.
there is to help people take their next step toward Christ.
Which does
And
bring
I've
glory to God, by the way. Like that's the unique
100%.
way in which he's called you to
Yes.
bring glory to God. Yeah.
Yes. So as I reiterated that with the Lord, it was like, and then I felt like he just said, teach like that, Jody.
Come
Teach like
on.
that. Well, I can do that,
Yes.
right?
It's
Because
what you were created
it's
for.
what I was created for. But it was almost like in that
Yeah.
process, he had to remind me who I am in him. He had to remind me that I do have a call in my life. We all do. And then as he it stated that with me, then I was able to say, oh, okay, I can do that, Lord.
Mm.
I can do that because that is what you've called me to. So I don't have to get my mind scattered on all these other things as I step into this teaching. I have to put my mind on the one thing
Yeah.
that you have called me to do and to do it in that way.
That's
And
so
that
good.
is such a centering, there's so much freedom in that
Mm-hmm.
because it's literally who I am. And it doesn't excuse like preparation and all that stuff because all of that's still part of it in the way that God has called me to live it out.
Mm-hmm. That's so good, Jodes. There's a learning tool that I came across at one point in when I was on church staff, but it was when we're learning something new, we first receive the information, and then with the information, we apply imitation. So like maybe I hear you pray out loud. I've never done it before. I hear you pray out loud. And so I get the information of what prayer is. I see you do it. I do it like you do it. But then the third step is innovation. And that is where the expression comes not in the way that I've seen it done through you, but in the way that God created me to do it. So, there isn't something wrong in the learning process and the journey in doing what you see other people do. We can model faith for people in such a way that it gives them a picture of, that's what that looks like when you're when you're really mad at your kid and you want to rip them a new one. I just saw how she handled that with her daughter, and I would like to do it that way, not the way that I do it. That's a good thing to see that modeled out for you, right? And then you can apply exactly what you saw happen in that situation to your parenting situation with your kids. But there is then a way, it's almost kind of like the next step is that becomes a part of who you are. And you're no
Yeah.
longer doing what somebody else did, but it finds its expression in the unique way that God created you. There's this innovation that takes place. And that's what I'm hearing you say. Like, you're at a place in your journey where God is freeing you completely to say, yeah, maybe there was information gathering and maybe there was imitation at some point in time, but girl, it's time to 100% Jody. Let's go.
Yeah. I love that we've like both gotten that message in the last couple of months
Yeah.
from the Lord, right? Like, can you just be 100% Shauna? Can you just be
Yeah.
100% Jody? That's actually what we're looking for.
The redeemed me, not
Yeah.
the raw,
Oh,
I woke up like this, me,
100%
the
who
pursuing
God
Jesus
created
me.
us to be.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah,
think
not
too,
ours.
we can also take that like, hey, this is how God made me. Like,
Yep.
we can take that to the other ditch, if you will.
Yeah. Like an example, like, yeah, God just made me to speak the truth. And so if you can't handle that, tough.
Yeah.
That's how God made
I'm
me.
just going to be
No,
right.
nope. That's like
Seasoned
trying to
with
take a license to
grace.
sin.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I'm just like, I don't know, I'm hot tempered. I just get, I'm quick
Yeah.
to respond. That's just how God made me. Well, let's pursue holiness. Let's pursue sanctification. First salvation and then sanctification. And God is transforming us. And, you had mentioned that earlier on, right? Like we're made new and then we're changed
Yeah.
into being more like him. Be holy because I am holy, he said. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So good stuff.
Good stuff.
Just, yeah.
I need to drop a note really quick.
Yeah.
So you were talking about your personal mission statement and how you've spent over 30 years working on that. I think it'd be really fun to do an episode on that sometime, meaning like, I don't know if it's something you can do in under 30 minutes, but just kind of like maybe the skinny version of like, this is a process you can walk through to find that for
Yeah.
yourself,
I
for our
love
listeners.
that. Yeah. We'll do that in a couple weeks. Let's do
Cool.
that because I do think that's important because it does, when we can see who God created us to be uniquely under the umbrella of, you know, being believers and
Sure.
following Christ and all of that, it does help give us focus and understanding. So let's do it.
Thank you so much. This was so good. I'm going to be praying for little Faye that she just is like a little fish and
Yes, thank you.
and specifically that Nana does, is it Nana or Nana?
Nana.
Nana does a really good job not freaking out at her swim lesson.
That would be good.
Yes.
For everybody's sake.
For everybody at the pool. Oh, goodness. Learning can be hard. It can be a struggle at times, but it's really, really good. And ultimately, yeah, God just created one you, and he did a really, really good job when he did that. So the world needs to know who you are and see you in full expression the way that God created you to be. So lean into that, trust him, and ask him, Lord, what did you make me uniquely to do? And we'll revisit that in a couple of weeks. But until then, just want to remind you, we serve a real God and he really loves you.